What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and I have a theory about Wanda that's kind of based off an existing theory, but we're actually going to turn it on its head and we're going to shift it up. So you remember in like the different Doctor Strange trailers, we get all this kind of footage and all this crazy footage. Well, some of the footage that we got, one scene in particular shows like Wanda on her knees and then a Wanda walking up to the Wanda who's on her knees. Now, the prevailing theory there is that because we're dealing with Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness, that we're talking about variants. In the same way that Sylvie is a variant of Loki, one of those Wandas is a variant of Wanda from the main Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't think that's true. And I think what's actually happening is I think they're both Wanda. Specifically, they're both the same Wanda from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which begs the question, are we dealing with something like time travel? No. So here's the thing, right? Here's this is, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like it'd be awesome if it was. So let's look at comics for a second, right? And let's just move away from Scarlet Witch in comics for a second. Let's talk about Adam Warlock. So in Marvel Comics, you guys have all heard of a story called the Infinity Gauntlet, right? Thanos gets the Infinity Gauntlet, he blinks out half-life in the universe, yada, yada, yada. His daughter, Nebula, who looks like a meth head at that point in time, gets the gauntlet and then goes crazy and then so on and so forth. And at the end of the story, Adam Warlock gets the Infinity Gauntlet for himself and he ends the conflict. Okay, follow that story up. What you got was something called Warlock and the Infinity Watch. Now, the idea behind this is that Adam Warlock, having the Infinity Gauntlet, had essentially decided that a person being in possession of it, that it was just too much power. Now, this decision was also kind of forced on him in the sense that as soon as Adam Warlock had gained the Gauntlet and after the Infinity Gauntlet story was over, he was put on trial by the cosmic entities with a living tribunal presiding as judge. And what the cosmic entities were arguing is that Adam Warlock is incapable of being a person to hold the Infinity Gauntlet just because of the fact that there's something about him that basically removes him from being able to understand right and wrong, which didn't make any sense because we knew that Adam Warlock was traditionally a hero. He understood right and he understood wrong. He let his temper get the better of him, which basically led the Living Tribunal to believe the cosmic entities, and essentially the Infinity Gauntlet, or at least the Infinity Stones, were completely and totally shut down, and Adam Warlock was instructed to hand the stones over to individuals that he trusts. And so he formed the Infinity Watch. Thanos got the Reality Stone, then there was like Pip the Troll, and there was Moondragon, who's the daughter of Drax the Destroyer, and a few other people here and there. But basically, it was a loose-knit team of people, each of which had an Infinity Stone, and they would basically guard it. Now, fast forward to a story called Infinity War, and that was basically this evil alter ego of Adam Warlock named the Magus, who was trying to get the Infinity Gauntlet and all that kind of stuff. What you learn in that story is the reason why the cosmic entities had basically argued that Adam Warlock could not be a righteous and true ruler because he couldn't truly understand right and wrong is because when Adam Warlock got the Infinity Gauntlet, subconsciously, he had basically created or brought back the Magus and then created Goddess. And that explained how it is that the Magus had seemingly returned after having been previously killed. And so the Magus represented the purely evil side of Adam Warlock, and Goddess represented the purely good side of Adam Warlock. And then Adam himself was devoid of good or evil. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened insofar as like a good witch, the Wicked Witch of the East and the Wicked Witch of the West. But what I am saying here is it's entirely possible that when Wanda became the Scarlet Witch, she purged that evil part of herself. And that's the version that we see. Whether or not she's aware of that version of herself is completely irrelevant. And in fact, I would say she's not. And the reason why is because if you look at the post-credit scene of the events of WandaVision, that you have Wanda sitting on like the little patio thing in the front of her house, drinking, or at least, seemingly drinking tea or whatever she's doing. And she ends up going back inside. And then the camera keeps going and it goes around the corner, and then you get Wanda who's reading the Darkhold. Now, this could be interpreted a couple different ways. Either that version of Wanda is literally there, she's actually and truly there, or that version of Wanda is just kind of the evil version of Wanda who's there, but kind of existing in the subconscious. Whatever it is, I would say somewhere between WandaVision and the start of Doctor Strange 2, that Wanda had subconsciously or maybe even intentionally purged that evil part of herself. And that version is out there. And that's the one that's wreaking all this havoc and doing all these things. It would explain how it is that Wanda is the main villain of Doctor Strange 2. It would explain why it is that we have two Wandas, and it would explain how it is that we have that scene where Doctor Strange is dressed normally and talking to Wanda, and then in turn, there's another scene in the trailer where he's talking to Wanda who's got the whole Scarlet Witch and everything's all red, but Doctor Strange is still dressed the same. That he's in the exact same location, but it's evil Wanda that he's talking to instead of good Wanda. Now, coming off the heels of like Moon Knight, people might look at that and say, okay, like multiple personalities and all that kind of stuff, like we kind of done this dance before, but there's precedence for this. There's precedence for somebody attaining a huge level of power and then in turn breaking off pieces of themselves, getting rid of that evil self, or that evil self becomes kind of its own thing and then goes out and does its own thing. So I think that's kind of what's happening here in Doctor Strange 2. I think it's entirely possible that what's going on is that we have two versions of Wanda. We have the evil Wanda and we have the good Wanda. And perhaps that particular scene where you have like Wanda in like the white shirt but looks menacing, and then you have like Wanda who's on her knees and she's crying, that's her being overtaken by her evil self, right? She's basically a prisoner in her own mind while her evil self just runs around using her powers and does all kinds of crazy things. Who knows, right? I have no idea. But this seems like something they would do in Doctor Strange 2. Right? Because one of the things that's kind of happening, because if we look at the Fate trailer, and we made a video about this yesterday, right? We were talking about how those monster things, looked like they were in the Angari, as far as I was concerned. One of the things that you guys pointed out is that it's entirely possible Wanda was just using the power of the Darkhold to fabricate those things, to bring those things out. But even if that's the case, one of the things to know is we don't know exactly how far reaching the Darkhold is, and we don't know exactly what it is that it's capable of. Much of what we're dealing with here in Doctor Strange 2 is delving into the realm of things that we just haven't seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe before. So the rules are gone, right? I mean, like the gloves are off. I mean, it's just kind of whatever we want it to be. And if we were, for example, to say that despite becoming the Scarlet Witch, Wanda had never really let go of all that anger and all that pain and all that hurt, even when, I mean, that's kind of indicated by like the end of the post-credit scene in WandaVision when she hears the voice of her kids. It's not as though she's let them go and it's just like, my children are not real, I created them. Like, she hears them and then presumably just races off. So she hasn't let that part of her life go. And if that's still stuff she holds on to, it's entirely possible that if she's messing around with the Darkhold and doesn't know what she's doing, that what she ends up inadvertently doing is giving a physical form to all that pain, rage, and anger that she's experienced over the course of her life. It's the darker half. Right? It's the darker side of herself. It's like the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, except for her, it's Miss Hyde, and Miss Hyde is walking around as a separate, tangible being. And so ultimately, it's good Wanda helping Doctor Strange and those guys defeat evil Wanda. Who knows? Again, this is just a theory. It could very well be the reason why we have those two versions of Wanda in that trailer is just because of the fact that like Wanda from the main Marvel Cinematic Universe is just going around killing all her variants across the multiverse. Why? I have no idea. I mean, I don't know why she would be doing that, but I do think that there is credence to this idea. I think there's credence to this particular theory. And so I'm really, really curious to see what you all think about this, right? Do you guys think that it's possible? Do you think that there is a better than fair likelihood that what we're seeing or what we're going to see in Doctor Strange 2 is in effect a good Wanda and an evil Wanda, essentially, right? That evil Wanda basically took on a physical form. We saw her for the first time at the end of WandaVision. We just didn't know what we were seeing. And that good Wanda is the one who is just trying to make peace and live quietly and was the one going inside to drink tea, and like that's basically it, right? Is that really what's going on here? Is that really what's taking place? That essentially Wanda's pain and struggle has manifested in a physical form. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I'm very, very curious to see what your thoughts are on this. But thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.